Detective Inspector Marcus Thompson had been watching airports for 23 years, but he'd never seen anything quite like this. Standing behind the one-way glass at Heathrow's private terminal, he adjusted his earpiece and checked his watch. It was 11:47 p.m. on a cold Tuesday in March, and the Queen Consort's departure had been scheduled for midnight. The call had come in 3 hours earlier, an anonymous tip to Scotland Yard's Royal Protection Unit. The voice was female, nervous, speaking in hushed tones. "Check her luggage before she leaves tonight. Terminal 5, private jet to Switzerland. Something's not right." Marcus had initially dismissed it as another crank call. They received dozens of them each week from conspiracy theorists and attention seekers. But something about the caller's tone bothered him. She knew specific details about Camilla's travel plans that weren't public knowledge. Details that only someone with inside access would know. Now, watching through the terminal's security cameras, Marcus observed the Queen Consort's entourage preparing for departure. Camilla Parker Bowles moved through the private lounge with her usual composed demeanor, dressed in a navy blue coat and cream scarf. Her personal secretary, Janet Morrison, followed closely behind, checking documents on her tablet. Marcus had worked royal protection details before. He knew the protocols, the careful choreography of movement, the multiple layers of security that surrounded every member of the royal family. Tonight felt different. There was an unusual tension in the air, something he couldn't quite identify. His radio crackled to life. "Thompson, this is Control. We've just received authorization to conduct a routine luggage inspection. Keep it discreet, standard diplomatic protocols." Marcus frowned. Routine inspections weren't called at 11:50 at night for royal family members. Someone higher up the chain had made this decision quickly. Too quickly for his comfort. He watched as Camilla's security detail loaded several pieces of luggage onto a cart. There were 3 large suitcases, a carry-on bag, and what appeared to be a small metal briefcase that never left the side of her personal bodyguard, Detective Sergeant Williams. "Ma'am," Williams spoke quietly to Camilla as they approached the departure gate. "There's been a slight delay with the aircraft. Technical inspection. Should only be 15 minutes. Camilla nodded without expression, settling into one of the leather chairs in the private waiting area. Marcus noticed she kept glancing at her watch, something unusual for someone known for her patience with travel delays. Marcus made his way down to the tarmac level, where the luggage was being loaded. The ground crew worked with their usual efficiency, but tonight they were accompanied by 2 additional security officers Marcus didn't recognize. They wore standard airport security uniforms, but their movements were too precise, too coordinated for regular baggage handlers. "Excuse me," Marcus approached the senior officer. "D.I. Thompson, Royal Protection. I need to inspect the luggage before loading." The officer, a stern-faced woman in her 40s, checked his credentials carefully. "Inspector Sarah Chen, Special Branch. We've been expecting you." She gestured toward a secure room adjacent to the loading bay. "We can conduct the inspection privately." Inside the inspection room, Marcus watched as each piece of luggage was carefully opened and examined. The first 2 suitcases contained exactly what he expected: designer clothing, personal items, medications, and the usual accessories of someone accustomed to luxury travel. The third suitcase was different, heavier than it should have been for its size. As Chen opened it, Marcus noticed an unusual smell. Not perfume or fabric softener, but something clinical, almost medicinal. Beneath a layer of carefully folded clothing, Chen's gloved hands found a series of small packages wrapped in vacuum-sealed plastic. Each package was roughly the size of a paperback book, but much heavier. "What do you think?" Chen asked quietly, holding up one of the packages to the light. Marcus had seen enough evidence bags in his career to recognize when something was deliberately concealed. "We need to open one." Chen carefully cut into the plastic with a small knife. Inside was another package, this one wrapped in what appeared to be medical gauze. As she unwrapped it, both officers stepped back in surprise. It wasn't drugs or money or any of the usual contraband Marcus had expected to find. Instead, nestled in the gauze was a small, ornate box made of what appeared to be very old wood. The box was covered in intricate carvings that looked almost ancient, symbols and patterns that neither officer could immediately identify. "There are 6 more packages just like this one," Chen observed. carefully examining the carved box without opening it. Each one individually wrapped, each one hidden beneath her personal clothing. Marcus felt his pulse quicken. This wasn't random smuggling. This was something planned, something important enough for the Queen Consort to personally transport it out of the country in the middle of the night. His radio buzzed. "Thompson, status report?" "We need more time," Marcus responded, "and we're going to need an expert to examine what we've found." As if on cue, the inspection room door opened and a new figure entered. Dr. Elizabeth Hartwell from the British Museum's Antiquities Department, still wearing what appeared to be pajamas under her overcoat. "Sorry for the late hour," Dr. Hartwell said, pulling on examination gloves. But when Special Branch calls about potential historical artifacts and royal luggage, one doesn't ask questions about timing. Marcus and Chen exchanged glances. This was clearly bigger than either of them had anticipated. Dr. Hartwell carefully examined the carved box under a magnifying glass, occasionally making small notes in a leather notebook. After several minutes, she looked up with an expression of genuine surprise. "This is remarkable," she said quietly. "These symbols are Mesopotamian, possibly Sumerian. The craftsmanship suggests this box could be several thousand years old. If it's authentic, it's priceless." "What would something like this be doing in the Queen Consort's luggage?" Chen asked. Dr. Hartwell shook her head. "That's not a question I can answer. But I can tell you that artifacts like this don't normally travel in diplomatic pouches. They require special export licenses, climate-controlled transport, insurance documentation. This," she gestured at the vacuum-sealed package, "this is not how one transports museum-quality antiquities." Marcus's phone rang. The caller ID showed his supervisor's number. "Thompson." "Marcus, we've just received word from Buckingham Palace. The Queen Consort's departure has been postponed indefinitely. Bring everything you found to headquarters immediately. And Marcus? This conversation never happened until we understand exactly what we're dealing with." As Marcus hung up, he noticed Dr. Hartwell was still examining the box, her expression growing more concerned by the minute. "Inspector," she said slowly, "there's something else you should know about this box. These particular symbols, this specific combination of carvings. I've seen them before. In a case file from 1953 involving artifacts that disappeared from the British Museum during the war. Artifacts that were never supposed to leave England." The implications of her words settled over the room like a cold fog. Marcus looked at the remaining packages in Camilla's suitcase, then at the expression on Dr. Hartwell's face. Whatever they had stumbled onto tonight, it was clear that this was only the beginning of a much larger story. A story that might reach into the highest levels of the royal family, into the darkest corners of British history, and into secrets that some people had gone to great lengths to keep buried. As Marcus carefully repacked the artifacts, he couldn't shake the feeling that tomorrow morning, nothing in his carefully ordered world would ever be quite the same again. The secure conference room at Scotland Yard's headquarters buzzed with quiet tension as the morning sun filtered through bulletproof windows. Detective Inspector Marcus Thompson sat across from three people he'd never expected to see in the same room together. Dr. Elizabeth Hartwell, still clutching her leather notebook from the previous night, Commander Patricia Walsh from Special Branch, and most surprisingly, Sir Geoffrey Pemberton, the palace's private secretary. Sir Geoffrey looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. His normally pristine appearance was disheveled, and his hands shook slightly as he poured himself a cup of tea from the service tray. "Before we begin," Commander Walsh announced, "everyone in this room has signed the Official Secrets Act. What we discuss today is classified at the highest level." Marcus had arrived at headquarters 3 hours early, unable to sleep after the events at Heathrow. He'd spent the time researching everything he could find about missing artifacts and the royal family's connection to historical collections. What he'd discovered had only deepened the mystery. Dr. Hartwell opened her notebook and spread several photographs across the conference table. "I spent the night examining the artifacts more thoroughly. What we found in the Queen Consort's luggage isn't just valuable. It's historically significant in ways that go beyond monetary worth." She pointed to one of the carved boxes. "This particular piece contains what appears to be an ancient seal, possibly Babylonian. These seals were used to mark important documents and treaties. But more importantly, This specific seal has been missing from the British Museum since 1943. Sir Geoffrey shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Dr. Hartwell, I think there may be some misunderstanding about the provenance of these items. No misunderstanding, she replied firmly. I've cross-referenced the museum's wartime evacuation records. During the Blitz, many precious artifacts were moved to secure locations outside London. Some were stored in country estates, others in underground bunkers. This seal was part of a collection that was moved to Balmoral Castle in 1942. Marcus felt pieces of a puzzle beginning to fit together. You're saying these artifacts have been at Balmoral for 80 years? Dr. Hartwell nodded. Not just stored there, hidden there. These items were never meant to be returned to the museum. Someone made the decision during wartime to keep them as part of the royal collection, but that decision was never officially documented. Commander Walsh leaned forward. Sir Geoffrey, I think it's time you explained exactly what Her Majesty the Queen Consort was doing with these artifacts last night. Sir Geoffrey removed his glasses and cleaned them slowly, clearly buying time to choose his words carefully. The palace has been conducting a comprehensive review of all historical items in the royal collection. Some pieces have unclear provenance, others have been the subject of repatriation requests from foreign governments. The decision was made to quietly return certain artifacts to their rightful institutions before any public controversy could arise. In the middle of the night? In personal luggage? To Switzerland? Marcus's voice carried his skepticism clearly. The Swiss authorities have a long-standing reputation for discretionary handling of sensitive cultural matters, Sir Geoffrey replied. There are private collectors and institutions there who specialize in facilitating returns of disputed artifacts without public attention. Dr. Hartwell looked up from her notes with sharp eyes. Sir Geoffrey, one of these boxes contains something that's never been catalogued by any museum anywhere. Something that shouldn't exist according to every academic record I've ever seen. The room fell silent. Marcus watched as Sir Geoffrey's face went pale. The seventh box, Dr. Hartwell continued, contains documents, handwritten letters and official papers that appear to date from the 1940s. Letters between members of the royal family and several high-ranking Nazi officials. The implications hung in the air like smoke. Marcus felt his understanding of the situation shifting dramatically. This wasn't about stolen artifacts anymore. This was about protecting the royal family's reputation from historical associations that could prove devastating if they became public. Commander Walsh spoke first. Dr. Hartwell, are you certain about the authenticity of these documents? I'm certain they require expert analysis by historians who specialize in World War II correspondence. But the paper, the ink, the handwriting, everything appears consistent with documents from that era. Marcus found his voice. What exactly do these letters say? Dr. Hartwell hesitated, glancing at Sir Geoffrey. They appear to discuss arrangements for preserving certain cultural treasures should Britain fall to German invasion. Some of the correspondence suggests that plans were made to relocate parts of the royal collection to neutral countries, including Switzerland. That doesn't sound unreasonable for wartime planning, Commander Walsh observed. No, Dr. Hartwell agreed, but some of the letters also discuss what would happen if members of the royal family needed to flee England. And there are references to financial arrangements that were made through Swiss banks, arrangements that may never have been properly documented or declared to the British government. Sir Geoffrey finally spoke up, his voice barely above a whisper. You have to understand these were desperate times. The royal family had to consider every possibility, including the possibility that Britain might lose the war. Arrangements were made, contingency plans that, thankfully, never had to be implemented. Marcus was beginning to understand the true scope of what they had discovered. These documents could suggest that the royal family was prepared to collaborate with a German occupation. No, Sir Geoffrey said quickly. They were prepared to survive one. There's a significant difference. Dr. Hartwell pulled out another photograph. There's something else. One of the documents is signed by someone whose signature I recognize from other historical correspondence. Prince Edward, before he became the Duke of Windsor. The Duke of Windsor's relationship with Nazi Germany had been a source of embarrassment for the royal family for decades. Any new evidence of contact between the royal family and German authorities during the war would reopen old wounds and create new scandals. Commander Walsh stood up and walked to the window. Sir Geoffrey, I need to know exactly who else knows about these documents. Until last night, I believed the contents of those boxes had been lost or destroyed decades ago. The Queen Consort was acting on information that had only recently come to light during the collection review. What information? Marcus asked. Sir Geoffrey sighed deeply. 3 weeks ago, a former royal employee contacted the palace. Janet Morrison, who had worked as a private secretary in the 1990s, claimed she had discovered these boxes while helping to catalog items being moved between royal residences. She said she had photographs of the documents and was concerned about their implications. The pieces were falling into place. Janet Morrison, Camilla's current private secretary, the woman Marcus had seen at Heathrow. She had been the anonymous caller. Morrison was trying to protect the royal family, Marcus realized. She called in the tip to stop Camilla from taking the artifacts out of the country. Commander Walsh turned from the window. Which means Morrison knew that removing these documents from Britain would constitute destruction of historical evidence and possibly obstruction of justice. Dr. Sower. Hartwell gathered her photographs carefully. These artifacts and documents need to be properly examined by a full team of experts. The historical significance alone requires that they be studied and preserved according to academic standards. Sir Geoffrey looked older than his 73 years. You must understand, any public revelation of these documents would be devastating not just to the current royal family, but to Britain's international reputation. The implications of wartime contingency planning could be misinterpreted by those who wish to damage the monarchy. Marcus felt the weight of the decision before them. They had stumbled upon historical evidence that could rewrite understanding of the royal family's actions during World War II. But they had also uncovered a contemporary attempt to conceal that evidence, an attempt that involved the current Queen Consort. His phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. Inspector Thompson, this is Janet Morrison. I believe it's time we talked. I have more information about what you found last night. Information that will help you understand why I had to make that call. Marcus showed the message to Commander Walsh, who read it with growing concern. It appears our investigation is about to become significantly more complicated, she observed. Dr. Hartwell, I need you to secure those artifacts immediately. Full documentation, complete analysis, and absolute secrecy until we determine our next steps. As the meeting broke up, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that they were balanced on the edge of a revelation that could change British history. The question was no longer what Camilla had been trying to take out of the country. The question was whether the truth about what she was hiding should ever see the light of day. Janet Morrison sat in the small cafe near Victoria Station, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea that had long since gone cold. Detective Inspector Marcus Thompson observed her carefully as he took the seat across from her. At 62, Morrison had the bearing of someone who had spent decades managing other people's secrets, but today she looked fragile, almost breakable. I never wanted it to come to this, she said quietly, not meeting his eyes. For 25 years, I've kept quiet about what I knew, but when I realized what the Queen Consort was planning to do with those artifacts, I couldn't stay silent anymore. Marcus had spent the morning reading Morrison's file. She had worked in various royal households since 1998, with an impeccable record of discretion and loyalty. Her decision to make that anonymous call had clearly cost her enormously. Tell me about when you first discovered the boxes, Marcus said gently. Morrison pulled a manila envelope from her purse and slid it across the table. 3 months ago, I was helping to organize the transfer of some items from Balmoral to Windsor. Standard procedure when the family moves between residences. But I noticed 7 boxes that weren't on any official inventory list. Marcus opened the envelope. Inside were photographs Morrison had taken with her phone, showing the carved boxes before they had been opened. But also included were photocopies of some of the documents Dr. Hartwell had mentioned. I probably shouldn't have looked inside, Morrison continued, but something about the way they were hidden, the way certain staff members were instructed never to mention them, it made me curious. The photocopies showed handwritten letters in elegant script, formal letterhead, and official signatures. Even in the poor quality copies, Marcus could see enough to understand why Morrison had been concerned. This letter, Marcus pointed to one of the documents, it's from 1943. It appears to be discussing the movement of gold reserves to Swiss banks. Morrison nodded grimly. Not just gold. Art, jewelry, historical documents. The royal family was moving substantial assets out of Britain, ostensibly to keep them safe from bombing. But the timing and the destination suggest something more complicated. Marcus studied another document. It was a formal agreement, signed by several royal family members, establishing a trust fund in Switzerland that would be activated if the British government fell to German invasion. This suggests the royal family was preparing for the possibility of living in exile under a Nazi regime, Marcus observed. Or worse, Morrison replied. Some of these documents suggest active cooperation with German plans for post-invasion Britain. Look at this one. The letter she indicated was dated September 1943 and discussed arrangements for maintaining royal properties under German administration. The language was diplomatic, but the implications were clear. The royal family had been negotiating terms for their potential role in a Nazi-occupied Britain. Marcus felt his phone vibrating. A text from Commander Walsh. Emergency meeting, new developments. Return to headquarters immediately. As Marcus prepared to leave, Morrison grabbed his arm. Inspector, there's something else you need to know. I wasn't the only one who knew about these boxes. 3 other people have known about their existence for years. Who? Sir Geoffrey Pemberton, obviously. But also Lord Mountbatten's former private secretary, Timothy Ashworth, and someone else. Someone who's been actively protecting these secrets for decades. Marcus waited for her to continue. King Charles himself. He's known about these documents since he was Prince of Wales. He was the one who moved them to Balmoral in the first place back in 1981. The revelation hit Marcus like a physical blow. This wasn't just about historical documents anymore. This was about the current king's direct involvement in concealing evidence that could fundamentally alter understanding of the royal family's wartime activities. 20 minutes later, Marcus sat in the same conference room where the investigation had begun. But now the atmosphere was entirely different. Commander Walsh looked grim. Dr. Hartwell appeared exhausted, and Sir Geoffrey was conspicuously absent. Sir Geoffrey has been recalled to Buckingham Palace, Commander Walsh announced without preamble. We've been instructed to suspend our investigation pending review by higher authorities. Marcus felt a surge of frustration. We can't just stop. We've uncovered evidence of potential historical fraud, document concealment, and what amounts to a cover-up that's lasted for 40 years. Dr. Hartwell looked up from her notebook. It's worse than that, Inspector. I've been analyzing the documents all night. Some of these letters discuss specific military information that was shared with German contacts, troop movements, defense preparations, strategic planning. If this information was actually transmitted to the Germans, it could have cost British lives. Commander Walsh's expression grew even more serious. Dr. Hartwell, are you saying these documents constitute evidence of treason? I'm saying they require investigation by historians and legal experts who can determine exactly what information was shared, when it was shared, and whether any of it contributed to British military casualties. Marcus's phone rang. The caller ID showed a number he didn't recognize. Thompson. Inspector, this is Timothy Ashworth. I believe Janet Morrison has spoken with you about certain historical materials. I think it's time we met. There are things about this situation that you don't yet understand. Marcus put the call on speaker. Mr. Ashworth, where are you? I'm at the British Museum, in Dr. Patricia Henley's office in the Medieval and Renaissance Department. She's been expecting these artifacts to be returned for 40 years. Commander Walsh leaned toward the phone. Mr. Ashworth, this is Commander Walsh, Special Branch. Are you saying the British Museum has been actively seeking the return of these items? Not just seeking them, Commander. We've been negotiating for their return since 1983. King Charles, when he was Prince of Wales, promised they would be returned to proper academic custody after Queen Elizabeth's death. That promise was never kept. The implications were staggering. Marcus realized that what they had uncovered wasn't just a recent attempt at damage control. It was part of a decades-long strategy to manage historical evidence that could damage the monarchy. Dr. Hartwell spoke up. Commander, I need to recommend that these artifacts and documents be immediately transferred to a joint custody arrangement between the museum, the National Archives, and Scotland Yard. This is too important for any single institution to control. Marcus's phone buzzed with another message. This one was from an unknown number, but the content made his blood run cold. Inspector Thompson, if you continue this investigation, you will be putting yourself and your family at risk. Some secrets are more dangerous than others. Consider this a friendly warning. He showed the message to Commander Walsh, who read it with growing alarm. This investigation is now officially classified at the highest security level, she announced. Dr. Hartwell, you'll be provided with a protective detail while you complete your analysis. Inspector Thompson, you'll report directly to me until further notice. As the meeting concluded, Marcus reflected on how quickly their simple luggage inspection had escalated into something that threatened to expose decades of royal family secrets. The artifacts Camilla had been trying to remove from the country weren't just historically valuable, they were evidence of wartime activities that could fundamentally alter public understanding of the monarchy's role during Britain's darkest hour. Walking back to his office, Marcus realized that the anonymous tip that had started everything had been more than just a concerned employee trying to protect her employers. Janet Morrison had been trying to force a reckoning with history that powerful people had spent 40 years trying to avoid. The question now wasn't just what the royal family had done during the war. The question was what they were willing to do in the present day to keep those secrets buried. As Marcus settled at his desk to write his preliminary report, he understood that this investigation would either result in the most significant historical revelation in modern British history, or it would quietly disappear, along with everyone who had been involved in uncovering it. Either way, he knew that his life and the lives of everyone who had touched these artifacts would never be quite the same. The truth had a way of demanding justice, even when that truth was 80 years old and protected by the highest powers in the land. His phone rang one final time. Commander Walsh's voice was tense. Marcus, pack a bag. We're going to Switzerland. It appears the Queen Consort's intended destination is more significant than we initially thought. The people she was planning to meet have some very interesting information about what the royal family has been hiding all these years.